Okay, so here's a quick summary of how pivot tables work. What a pivot table is it's a kind of a mini Excel sheet that allows you to non-destructively show different things that could happen with your values. Say, for instance, in this case, I want to see how much that Amy and Bob are sourcing these particular machines for, and I've got them broken down by the manufacturer. So the grand total of all of that is written here, and then by manufacturer, I've got those totals as well between Sony and Alpha, whatever that is. Also, I can see over to the right what the total sourcing price for each of these two people are. So, and I can do that very quickly without having to do a sum on here or any crazy formulae. So let's erase all of this, and I'm going to kind of recreate it and show you some of the things that pivot tables do well and some of the things that they don't do very well. So depending on which version of Excel you are using, the way to make a pivot table can be different. I know on the Microsoft ones that I have used, typically you would go to insert a pivot table by going to Insert and Pivot Table as an option. On a Mac, which is what I'm using in this case, I go to Data and Pivot Table. So what's going to happen when you hit that button is it's going to ask you what data to reference to make the pivot table and where you want the pivot table to be placed after you're done. A lot of people will put it on a new tab. It's really up to you. To select the data you want to analyze, the data you want to import for the pivot table, you click this button, which allows you to select a range on the worksheet you are on. You can also switch tabs to do this. And I'm going to select this entire range, and it puts it on that line there. And then where do I want to place it? On a new worksheet or an existing worksheet? I'm going to put it on the same worksheet, and H16, which is where the cursor currently is fine. All right, so now it's going to give you an idea of what your pivot table is going to look for, but it doesn't know how to parse the information yet. It doesn't know where to place the information you gave it. So let's kind of recreate what I had done before. On this side, I want to see Bob and Amy, and then I want these areas over here to show different values from the data we've got. So to do that, to get my two users on this side, I'm going to take user, this column here, which lists all of them, and put it in row labels, or row area. In Microsoft Excel on a PC, you can drag these tabs to these individual places, which makes it a little bit easier. On Mac, evidently you can't. So I'm just going to drag user to row labels, and then they populate right there. And on this side, they would show any values they have, any data they have, but I need a column to pull that information from. This is the column area. So let's use that price again, because it gives us a couple of things we can do. Actually, let's do columns first. Price would be the value. A column I want to pull from will be a literal column in this. So let's go back to make, because there's only two of them there, and I'm going to put that in column labels. So now I've got Amy and Bob on my row labels, and I'm going to be getting information about these two based on what I have in these two categories within the model. So the values I want to pull, again, like I say, are price. And if I drop that into values right now, you might think this looks a little weird because it is not reflective of any of these numbers, but what it's actually doing is a count. So in this case, Amy has a count of one job that reflects alpha in it. And to support that, here's Amy's two fields. One is alpha and one is Sony. So that backs up. Bob also has one, and that is also true. And then you see Sony. Bob has one. I think that may not be true. One alpha. I see two of those. So I'm curious about that. Makes me worry a little bit because this is only showing 4. Let's find out. I'm going to refresh my data to see if this is pulling from something old by right-clicking and hitting refresh data. That seems to say the same. I want to take a look at that again because this should show me a count of all of the different cells. But it's possible that it's only showing that there are one. I actually don't know why it's doing that. But anyway, In any case, this isn't very useful to me unless I just wanted to see how many of each type of object they have. So I'm going to change this from count of the price field to a sum by right-clicking or actually just clicking on this little I here. It's a little bit different on, again, between Mac and PC. I'm going to hit sum and then hit OK. So now this is going to give me a sum of all the jobs tied to this person with that information. Oh, you know what? I just realized why that was only showing one. There wasn't a price field in here. So I forgot that it was looking at price and not the make. So now if I was to change this back to, instead of sum being count, it should reflect that. Oh, again, I do have to refresh it. That's another good point. Anytime you change something up in the original data, it won't be reflected right away until you hit refresh. I think some pivot tables are a little better at this than the Mac version, so your results may vary. In any case, I'm going to go back to sum because, again, that's kind of a more telling bit of information for me. So that's a real quick way to show what just moving these things around can do. Now, say I wanted to filter out by something else. I don't have a very good example of that because there's a lot of just random values. But what if I use the date? So if I, on the report filter, wanted to say only jobs before this time, I could do that. So right now it's just saying date. You can select one of these, just like you would do a filter on a column in Excel. So let's say I only want to see things that were done on these two very different dates. And then that shows up. And it filters it even further. In this case, Amy doesn't have anything for alpha in this column. I'm going to clear that filter and go back. You can also move these things around. What if you wanted to know, instead of the user who did what, let's say the make, and switch the user. So if we're looking at things done for alpha, how much have we bought or sold or something like that. This is the total, and this is the breakdown of who did what in that. And you could move this around any way you'd like. You could even add more columns in here to break it down further. So if I wanted to break this down into the model, so now I can say that alpha has these two models. Overall, this is what they've sold, but between those two models, here's the breakdown of how much they cost or are worth. And you can keep going further and further. And as you change the information you want, you'll want to change how the value possibly is shown. So you can get kind of into these a little bit deeper. But average is another good one. Between the two, what is the average that this is costing, or something like that. That's a pretty quick breakdown. There's probably some more questions you might have. If you do, just send me a text message or something like that, and or a private message even, and I will do everything I can to help. I appreciate you. Bye.